tonight's talk with credits. When I was at college and I was studying child development, and I didn't know anything about it, but I read whatever we were taught to read. But one good thing about it was that we had to do a presentation to other students, and that really helped. I hadn't done that before. It's not the first time I've talked to people, but to give a lecture. So actually it was quite funny because I go up on the stage and I sit there on a chair, and then people say, "You better move because the professor's coming."
Microphone was off.
Disconnected. Yeah, okay.
You can start over.
Is it on now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll repeat that. I was studying child development in the college, and one of the things which was very useful is that we had to do a presentation to the other students. And usually just the same year that you're in, but this time there were 3 years because as lecturers are away or sick or something like that. So I ended up on the stage, and it amused me because I'm sitting there and people are saying, "Hey, I think the professor's coming. You better, get out of it." And I stayed, and then they realised that actually I was giving the lecture, which was a very good experience. I mean, it was, the adrenaline was amazing. And anyway, and then look at faces. All the faces are friendly. I know them all. Most of the students. I'm mentioning it because tonight I want to cover a little bit of that from a holy perspective. Saint Porphyrius, and his advice to pregnant mothers, his advice to solving psychological problems with children. And he was very, very strict on that. And he would tell people, for example, there was a boy that was diagnosed as dyslexic, and he didn't speak. That's right, he didn't speak. And Elder Porphyrius said, "Don't worry about it, he'll speak when he's 12. What? Yes, don't worry. When he's 12, he'll speak. At the moment, he don't. Do not send him to the clinic. It's very bad for him. That's the worst thing you can do, is send him to this clinic and where he will develop complexes." That's fascinating. I mean, I'm thinking about it. I never knew about that before when I was studying it. This is very interesting, but this is through the Holy Spirit. Sasha, are you okay? No. Okay. Completely different situation. And the mother, obviously, and parents were concerned the child is not talking and you don't want him to have any treatment. He said, "No, it'll ruin it. Don't do that." Well, I don't know, it was a year passed by, and he started speaking. And very well indeed. In fact, they said he wouldn't stop. It was terrible, actually. He couldn't stop talking. Discovered that he's got a voice and can express himself. This is through the prayers of a saint. This is not through therapy. I'm not saying the therapy should happen. I don't like it, but that's a personal thing. But the elder said, "No, this is not the right way to go. In fact, it can cause harm." And he said, what you don't realize is that at conception, the soul is created and placed in the embryo before it's even developed. There's a connection. They already have a spiritual life. Maybe, a week old or something. It doesn't matter. The point is that they are receptive, and because of that, they are very sensitive to the mood of the mother. If the mother's stressed, then so is the baby. But it's interesting because he said at conception, that's where jealousy is born. Jealousy in the child is at conception. I've never heard of that before. That was interesting. And Saint Porphyrius said, yes, it's a problem, but most people don't know about it, and so they don't know what to do. Well, you have to understand what it is, but he said you have to be very careful when you're talking around somebody that's pregnant, because the baby will react negatively or positively. So obviously, going to church, taking the baby to church, the mother communing. Recently I was saying, well, you're communing for 2 people, not just one. Oh, I'm talking Sophia, of course. having a baby. And I said, you're communing for two people now, just one. I mean, she knows that, and she understands it. So this spiritual connection is at conception, not so many weeks later or a month later. It's straight away, and God places the soul. Oh, I don't know how he does this. I mean, I'm just quoting Elder Porphyrius. And so the child is very cognizant of what's going on, especially a negative. So you get angry, and it affects your baby. Now, what about jealousy? What is that? Well, Elder Porphyrius said that jealousy is when the mother takes the baby, her baby, the first baby, and caresses it and sings to it and does all nice things. The baby inside can become jealous of this attention. Attention on the inside. And so anything negative around children. I mean, we all know we're parents and we've grown children, so we know, but they're very sensitive. That doesn't mean to say you can't be strict, but you have to understand that you're dealing with a person, not a little biological blob. It's a real person, and I think that's what affects a lot of people. In later in life, have problems, have complexes, because they had therapy. I mean, it depends on obviously that's too broad to say that, but it's the wrong approach. And Elder Porphyrius was very, very strong on that. Emphatic that also he said you're meant to have children. If you're a mother, you're meant to have more children. That's what God has ordained. I mean, it's a bit much for the mother to have some more, but yeah, that's what it's for. That's what you're here for. Nothing else. But it's based on, of course, it's based on love. Christ's love. And that through loving, we say, we love God. If you ask somebody, do you love God? Yes, of course I do. But they don't show it, because they don't understand that the following Christ is a sacrifice. If you're going to love somebody, you have to sacrifice yourself. And you can't get love from somebody. Only by you give love, and in return you receive love. So it's not a question of control at all. And we're now thinking of the child as well, at whatever age, doesn't matter what age. He's saying that we need to have the love of Christ. And this is the path that we have to follow. How do we do it in a practical sense? What is love of God? Well, the problem is that we have a love for things. We have a love for things. We love food. Is there something wrong with that? No, of course not. We love entertainment. We love the idea of ambition. All these things are not to be taken away, but are to be reduced, modified. That way we are loving God, because otherwise it's theoretical. It's no good having the theory in the mind that I do love God and I go to church and go to confession and that's sufficient. It's not. It's not sufficient. To love God is very practical. It's not theoretical. And so there are ways of doing it. And Christ himself, I said in the Gospel a few days ago, he said, those that love me do the will of my Father. Keep the commandments. That shows that you love me. The commandments. And we have all this opportunity because we have in the church, supports us with fasting, ispoved, confession, Prichastia, Holy Communion. All these things are given to us by God, and we can take part of those. If we ignore them, what I'm coming to is that we need to be at church. We need to be at the services, especially the feasts. And I noticed recently, well, people of course are on vacation this time of year, it's summertime, and I understand that. But there's not a concern. I feel that if you love somebody and you agree to do something with them, then you can't do it the last minute. You tell them. I would have thought, yeah. You say, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I can't make this appointment. I can't do it. But with God, we say we can't do it, but we don't go any further than that. It's just, that's it. There's no contrition. We're not repentant. We're not sorry that we're not at church. That's what we have to develop. Love of God is not fearing to upset him. That's what true love is. Love is concern for the other person. In this situation, it's God. You don't want to offend God, so that's why you do what you do, or don't do certain things. If you wish, I'm quoting Porphyrius now, if you wish to raise the love of God, the other loves must come down. In other words, your desire for food, desire for entertainment has to come down. And what do you do? And this is the problem. This time of year, of course, people want to go away, and I think that's important. But you know, instead of church, we party. Is that bad, partying? No. But it is in the sense, if we love somebody, you won't want to disappoint them. It's like, you know, making an appointment with somebody. We're going to go and have a meal together. Then the last minute you say, oh no, I can't do that. And you're not really sorry, but you know, I think one is sorry that one is, you know, not able to fulfill what we want to do. Yes, of course we're sorry in that sense, but we're not sorry that we're missing church. I think I told you the story about, oh yes, I did tell the story about Berlin Philharmonic. When I was in Berlin, yes, I told that off the cuff, that one. Yeah, I became Orthodox in August 1969, and shortly afterwards I was posted to Berlin. As I said, I was posted as secretary to James Bond. Actually, it was a very boring job. It was awful. It was surveillance. So, you know, it was not interesting except the language. I learned Russian. Fantastic opportunity. But the thing is that I went to Berlin and I didn't know anything. I mean Orthodox for a month or 2 months at the most. I didn't know anything. I was reading. I've been reading as much as I could to find out things, and I was asking people, and they were telling me all right, especially the babushki, the grannies on the kleros. But I was on the kleros singing, and after one liturgy, one of the ladies said to me, "Oh, you're coming on Tuesday, aren't you?" What? Yes, it's the feast of Pokrov. I didn't know what Pokrov was. I said, "Oh, yeah, I suppose so." I bought this ticket. This ticket was very difficult to get hold of. The seats were, you know, apart from being expensive, that's nothing. It was very difficult to get a ticket. Excuse me. And I managed to get one. And it was Carrie conducting my favourite orchestra at the time. Wonderful. And now somebody says to me, "Oh no, you're going to be at church on Tuesday." Are you? Yes, I suppose so. What could I say? If I had, and I said on Sunday, I said, what happens if I'd gone to the concert instead of Pokrov? Thunderbolt from the sky? No. God's love. But I did go to Vigil and sing, and feeling very disappointed with this nice ticket, beautiful ticket, you know.
Did you sacrifice?
It was a sacrifice, but I needed it. And I thank God now in retrospect, because, well, you don't have to explain. Yeah. Anna was very funny because she said, we have a different name, the parish would be called something else. Sort of dampened it down a bit, yeah, because it makes me look as though I'm, you know, making a great sacrifice. Well, I wasn't, but I was very disappointed. Ah, okay. This is God's providence, providinia of God. You say, I want to follow God's providence. Well, be careful what you're saying, because it may not be what you want. In fact, many times it isn't. But God is gracious, merciful, willing to help us, wants to be our friend. He says in the Gospel, I call you friends. You're not servants, you're not slaves, I call you friends. He's talking to the apostles, but we are the descendants of the apostles, the church. So God is our friend. So would you let your friend down? No. Would you want to upset them? No. Do we do it? Yes. This is a struggle. Okay? It's an ideal world which we don't live in. It takes a lot of effort, says the elder, to love Christ. When we are devoted to spiritual struggle, we raise our love for Christ. Don't ask for love, give love. So how do you give love to God? Well, keep the fast. He's ordained a fast. It's for our benefit. We don't think so because we don't like fasting, we like eating. I mean, that's just the way it is, and so it's a struggle. Pity, but that's the way it is. We have a fast now, the Apostles' fast. Most inconvenient if you're on vacation. Yeah? But God is merciful, and we'll get by. The elder says to somebody that came to visit him and couldn't, I don't know how to give God love. He said, the problem is your pride. It's as tall as a mountain. And that's why you can't love God. Now, the other side is that if you don't love God, you won't be getting into the next world or receiving the blessings that are in the next world. But it has to be in this world that we love God, not wait till we die and go to another level, another sphere, whatever we're going to call it. It's now, because that's where it's going to be sealed. Once we've died, it's too late. Say, well, I wish I had done that. I wish I had, not gone to. I wish I had gone to vigil, but I didn't. I went to the concert. That's got to be resolved now, in this, while we're alive, because we won't be able to do it later. And the terrible thing, the judgment which shook me when I was reading it, was that, people are worried about end times. They're worried about the Antichrist. And Elder Porphyrius said you should not worry about them at all. That's a sign of lack of faith. The Antichrist has got no power over us whatsoever. Don't worry about it, he said. But, he said, for the people that are worried and concerned, it's because they don't have Christ. That's their problem. Not the Antichrist, it's they don't have Christ. And then our Lord will say, well, I don't know you. Who are you? Yeah? Lord, Lord, it's not sufficient to say that. You have to do the will. We have to be in relationship with Christ. And then we will see, and also the wonderful thing about it is that when we follow Providence, however difficult, God shows us what to do. We don't have to make difficult decisions. Well, we think we do at the time, but we don't. Because God has already given us an answer. This is, well, that is the main essence of what I want to talk about. Just wanted to mention, which is fascinating, is that Elder Porphyrius, his elder, one of his elders, were two. He was under two elders. They were brothers, and so he was living with them on the Holy Mountain. And they were both on a very high level spiritually, whatever that means. Anyway, the Ioannikius, which is one of the elders, the other one was Pantaleimon, but Ioannikius disappeared. 1 September, they even have a date, he just wasn't there anywhere to be found. They called out the police, searched the mountain, monks went looking, checked airports. There was no sign of him, he disappeared, literally. And Elder Porphyrius said, yes, well, I think what it is, he went to join the invisible monks. Do you know about that on the Holy Mountain?
I know.
Yeah, there are monks.
Is this a new story or old story? Is it a new story or old story? That story. Because Georgians have been there in Mount Athos.
Yes.
Athos and other somebody in like a monk
Yeah.
gave them like olives and bread. And when they returned back up from Georgia, they could not find that monk, and the other monk
Hmm.
was said from this Georgian that there was a monk that hosted them, and Georgians
Oh, I see. Yes.
Georgians
Yeah.
brought for him some gifts from Georgia.
Yeah.
That monk says, I'm here 25 years, I'm only me, just me here, nobody is here, so never been here. Besides me, nobody was here.
So there is a yeah. Yeah, there is a legend, or it's true. I think it's true, but I don't begin to think more in that way these days. Is that they are invisible, but they live on the holy mountain. And what's it about? I have no idea.
It happened this year.
Oh, yes. No, I mean they've been.
Very new story.
Yeah. Oh, I see. A new one. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
This is another story.
It's another story.
Oh, I thought it was the same story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's the same phenomenon. It's
Yeah,
the same,
phenomenon, the
same
but story
thing.
different.
Yes. Yeah.
Those guys are like professional singers, polyphonic music of Georgia,
Mm.
and they have been there in Mount Athos for praying,
Yeah.
pilgrim, and yeah.
Go on.